here. All right, it looks like we are. Cool. So, welcome everybody. Let me know if you can hear the audio. Let me know if you can hear a kick drum. Since we have everything totally wired differently today, want to make sure that we have what we are looking for. So let me just quickly refresh. All right, there we go. Looks like we have everything. Cool. I can turn the kick up a bit. How's that sound? Just want to make sure we're not breaking up and that it's loud enough and that you can hear everything. Sweet. So I'll take that out so we can chat for a second. Welcome, everybody. Today is kind of a special day because we are talking about a project that has been in the making for a very, very long time. I'll give you a little bit of the history of it, then we'll talk about some of the things about what we're talking about today, and then we will, you can check out your questions and we'll kind of answer them. I'll show you whatever I can show you. Obviously, sound quality is going to be all right. Looks like we have some interesting internet connection. But anyway, we're going to do our best. So here we have the all new, so new that it's not even out yet, Boredbrain Xcelon SL, which is, we'll talk a little bit about what it is, what it isn't, why those decisions were made, what's going to be different about that. I'm distorting on the left channel. That's weird because I'm not here, according to my camera output. But anyway, I will take this back down just a little and see if that fixes it. Clipping voice. All right, well, I'll take my voice down. So what we're doing right now, what's interesting is everything is wired differently than it normally is, because normally I have my studio mixer, which is what I run everything through for these streams. And on this one, I'm actually coming in to the Xcelon with my voice. So that's why you can see channel 8 is active right now as we're doing that. Let me know if you're still hearing clipping because, okay, yeah, I turned it down, so it says it's better. Sweet. Yeah, trying to get all these levels set because we've got a whole bunch of different levels to gain stage here between everything. So what we're gonna do is we're gonna talk about the Xcelon SL. Okay, now it's very low. Well, let me change my output volume here and see if that helps. Let me know if that's any better, if that's still good while clipping. So I have level in the mixer, level in the other mixer, and level in my streaming software. So anyway, yeah, it's digital after for sure, Adam. So anyway, yes, what it is, it's my output software here for streaming. So I'm gonna try to get these all level set correctly. But yes, this is still live. To answer the question, to show you that it's live, I'll answer your live question. So what we're going to be talking about today is the Boredbrain Xcelon SL, which you can see right here. So the Xcelon SL, what is it and what is it not? Well, it is a project from the guys at Boredbrain, which I believe Adam from Boredbrain is in the chat here. He said he was going to be able to come and go today, so you can maybe ask him some direct questions if you have, that you would normally have on a mixer that was designed to mix a band that you won't see here because this really wasn't designed for that. This is specifically designed for electronic music, and we'll talk a bit about that as we go on. One thing that this is not, and it's something that I got a bunch of questions about that I wanted to chat about as well here, is that this is not a This is not a sound card. It is not an audio interface. So this is a completely completely analog mixing desk. So what this really for is for specifically mixing all of your gear in an analog environment while you're performing live. So you're not going to find any digital effects. You're not going to find any digital audio conversion. We're not trying to output this via USB or via ADAT or any of that kind of stuff. So this is a completely analog mixer for live performance. Okay. So with that said, let's talk a little bit about the other thing that it's not. This is not just a desktop version of the Xcelon that you may have in your modular setup, which Boredbrain has been known for a few years now, that they've done a pretty amazing job with creating a great analog mixer for modular. This shares a lot of DNA with that. A lot of the individual channels kind of started off with with what we have with the Xcelon, the Eurorack version of the Xcelon, and so it started off there. But then Adam and his team added in so much more. So a lot of things this has, the Xcelon doesn't, because that's designed to be modular. Very much modular. Not only that it's Eurorack modular, but it is modular, meaning that you can piece together things on your own. And when you piece together things on your own, you can customize your setup. This is designed to be a standalone setup that doesn't need to be customized. And maybe someday down the road, there will be some things on the outside that can customize this from Boredbrain. But what we've got right now is something that can be customized with your own effects, your own pedals, your whatever gear you want, so you can kind of mix and match your gear setup to use with the Xcelon SL. So where do we have, or what do we have here? We have 8 channels, as you can see. There are 8 stereo channels, and they can also be dual mono. So if you plug in 2 mono signals into the 2 different jacks in the back, you have this little crossfade switch on every channel. And if you engage crossfade, what that does is it makes your balance, your pan, a crossfade between the 2 mono signals. So those 2 mono signals will share a volume slider, they'll share effect sends, they'll share everything that's in that channel strip, but you can crossfade the volume between them to mix them together. Where this comes in really handy is if you have, let's say, 2 kick drums, 2 hi-hats, whatever that you want to use at different times in your performance, you can put them both on the same channel and you can mix between them, you can combine them together, you can use all of one, all of the other, and it allows you to have up to 16 mono channels in an 8-track or an 8-channel mixer. So that's one of the main bits. So obviously, starting off right there, all the channels are stereo. So this is one of the questions that I was getting asked all the time. Now, what does each channel have? So if you look here, each channel has 2 effect sends, which are stereo send and returns. You've got your effects return volumes over here in the center. So you've got individual control over the level of the return, but this is the amount that gets sent. So those can go out to individual pedals. It can go to a modular effects, which is what I have here. It could go out to your audio interface into a DAW to use those effects, whatever you choose. But these are the effect sends that are shared across all the channels. So anything that goes from channel 1 out of any channel, or sorry, effect send 1 out of any channel is going to go down that send 1 path and come back. So you've got 2 of those. Those can be either pre-fader or post-fader. There's a little switch right here. If you see, you can go pre or post. And so you can set that up in different ways. You can change it during your performance. One of the things I love to do is I have my effect send 1 on pre-fader, and that is going out to a reverb. So one of the things to be able to do with that is to be able to just add kind of just reverb sounds. So let's see if I bring something in here. I can just add a reverb sound. So that's coming into this channel from my modular, and then that's going out to an effect on send 1 and coming back in stereo. And I've got level control over that mix of that send. So you can use this to create atmospheric sounds if you want to. If you have, combining this together gives you a way to send combinations of things to effects. So this is a couple of different sounds, but with the faders down because they're going out pre-fader and going out to different effect sets. So that's one of the reasons why I love pre-fader effects. But then there's times when you only want something post-fader. You only want the effect to affect that thing when you've got the fader up and in the amount that the fader is up. And so then you just put it onto post-fader, and then you've got the ability to do that. So 2 effect sends per channel. There is gain per channel. Included with the gain. So there's a secondary function or an alternate function for every knob that's on here. So obviously pre and post fader for the effect sends. The gain has an analog drive circuit, so you can engage that drive circuit. So if we have something like our kick drum here, right? We've got our regular gain, which is a level gain. But then if we change this over to the drive circuit, and then we can go back to gain. So you've got kind of clean gain or driven gain. This is going to be adjusted a little bit on the final module or on the final mixer. One thing to let you know before we get too far into this, this is one of 2 Xcelon SLs that exist right now, and they're both working prototypes. We had this to premiere at the Buchla and Friends show out in LA a couple weeks ago, and so there are a few things that will be changed up slightly, adjusted, settings a bit different that you'll see on the final units when they come out. So this is just to kind of show you where we're at right now, and I'm sure that some of those things Adam may be able to chime in on and say, this will be slightly different this way or not, or the things that he's working on. So just so you know, there will be some adjustments to a few of the things on here. The next thing besides the analog drive circuit and gain is there's a tilt EQ per channel. This is analog as well. And the secondary function of that is a mid, boost, or scoop. And so people say, okay, well, tilt EQ, how effective is that? Why do you have that? Why isn't it a multi-band EQ like you see on a DJ mixer? And what's really, this is one of the places where this unit is really unique to what it's really built for, which is electronic music. When you have a DJ mixer, you have a multi-band EQ because what you're doing is you're taking whole tracks that are full frequency spectrum and trying to make those tracks fit together in a mix. So you want to be able to EQ individual frequency bands, taking them out of one track, bringing them up in another track, making space to mix those together. This is really designed to have individual instruments per track. And when you have that, you're going to be able to control the timbre of that instrument in the instrument. And so when it comes in here, having a multi-band EQ is less important in this environment than it would be, say, if you were mixing a band and you needed to be able to do corrective EQing. This is really designed to be performance EQing. So where you're going to hear stuff, where you're going to hear this kind of be a thing is if we bring up, let's say, so this is another input source that is coming from an Ableton push. And so if I'm using this sound quite full frequency and I want to be able to fit this better into my mix, being able to use a tilt EQ where I can tilt this towards the high end, so pushing highs, reducing lows, tilting into that way, and then moving it back the other direction if I wanted it to fit more in the low end, taking out highs, moving it more into the lower frequencies. So you can hear it well with something like this, so you can hear kind of with a full spectrum thing, but the idea being that with an individual instrument, let's say with a synth, which is coming from my modular right now, let's say with this in my mix as I'm performing, because of the other instruments, this is kind of mid-heavy. If I wanted this to be more on the high end, I can tilt this more towards the high end to help it fit better into a mix. Or on the flip side, if I've got a lot of high end, I can tilt this more towards the low end. Then we also have the mid, which if I put it on mid, you've got a mid boost. You see how it's pushing the mid frequencies, but not the highs and the lows. And then if we take it the other direction, it scoops out those frequencies. So you've got the lows and the highs, but not the mids. So you have the choice of two different modes on this, which is your tilt EQ, so you can tilt towards the highs or tilt towards the lows, and then that mid boost or scoop, which allows you to kind of fix that mid section. So whichever is the more convenient for what you're doing, and it's by instrument. So as you've got individual instruments coming in, it allows you to fine tune what you've already done in the mixer. Or sorry, in the individual synth or the drum machine or the, whatever your DAW where you're coming in. So you're gonna do any kind of corrective sound shaping there. And this is really designed as a performance mixer. So you're gonna wanna be able to fit things into the performance that way. So that's where the tilt EQ comes in, and that's analog as well. Another thing that's really unique about the Xcelon SL is that we have a compressor per channel. And again, kind of going back to that idea of who this is made for, being able to have a whole bunch of different sources coming in. So everything from, a sampler where you've got samples that have been, EQ'd and mastered, or you've got individual synths, or you have individual drum machines, and they may have different levels. You may have a piece of vintage gear that's coming in with a different type of level quality. And so to be able to have that compressor per channel, it allows you to fine tune the audio of that individual instrument, right? This isn't designed as a compressor that's going to be for production where you're going to be using a glue compressor to master your track. This is really designed on an individual per instrument basis, per channel basis, to be able to shape the sound of that individual instrument as it comes in. And so there's two different modes for the compressor as well. So there's kind of your more traditional mode with a shorter attack. So it's going to start as soon as it hits your threshold level, it's going to start to compress. And then you have a level that we call, or a mode that we call punch, which allows a longer attack. So it allows transients through, so you get more of a punchy sound. So if we listen to this on a kick drum, I'll take it into normal mode. And this is in normal mode. As we increase the compressor, you could hear how you get to the top and it completely crushes the sound. Back down to nothing. But if we take it into punch mode, you'll hear that it does that same compression, that same kind of crushing compression, while it still allows the transient through. So you see you maintain that transient hit as you go through. Okay, so again, two different modes, and you'll use those at different times. Obviously, if you've got something that you want to be more punchy, if you've got something that you want to correct because maybe the transient is too dramatic or too sharp, you can put it into your traditional mode. If you've got something that like kick drum or percussion and you really want to have that transient come through, switch it into punch mode and go for it. And what's interesting is that you've got this selectability right on the face of it. So there's no menus, there's nothing to dive into, and it's really easy to change on the fly while you're performing. So in one track or in one part of the performance, you might want it a certain way. And in another part of the performance, you may be listening and going, you know what, I need some more punch there. I'm going to change up my compressor and just go for it. So anyway, there's a lot of different controllability with all of these different modes here. Then of course we have your balance, which is your panning from left to right. And that also has a secondary function of crossfade, as I mentioned before. So if you've got if you're just listening to a regular signal like this, you've got your regular panning. from left to right. But if you have a single channel that's included in this, like for example, I have the kick only coming in on a mono channel. So if I put this into crossfade mode, right now you'll hear it pan, but if I go to crossfade mode, that's my 100% mono signal of that kick. And then as I come over here, well, it's in the left one, so it's normal to that. So there's not anything there. But if you have two different independent mono signals coming in, you can crossfade between those two mono signals. So that's another interesting bit. So the next thing that's really special and unique about the Xcelon SL, and it's another thing that makes it, really geared towards live performance, is there's a built-in sidechain compressor, a master sidechain, which you can see the controls for here in the middle, but this is assignable per channel. So if you see here on each channel, there's a little switch that says sidechain on. So what this allows you to do is to decide which tracks you want to be impacted by the sidechain, and then you have control over how that sidechain sounds. The sidechain is triggered. The normal of the sidechain trigger is normal to channel 1, so whatever your input is to channel 1. So I have my kick here, so that's what's going to trigger the sidechain all the way across. If I didn't want to use this as my sidechain input for the trigger, I can take another outside source and plug it in right here to the external sidechain in, and that overrides this, and then this becomes a sidechainable track. So you can go back to that. Another thing that's cool with this is that you can take a patch cable, and on top of each one of these channels, there's a stereo pre-fader output for individual channels, which is great if you want to multi-track your performances. You can take those out to a multi-track recorder. What it's also really great for is you can take a patch cable and say, let's say I wanted to sidechain this to my voice. I could plug into the voice channel, put that into the sidechain in, and now as my voice talks, every time my voice goes up, that's what's going to duck the sound. So you can hear that each time I say something, it takes down the sound, right? So you can patch these with different instruments. You can take an external instrument into the sidechain in, or you can do it from one of the many channels that's here and just kind of patch across, which is pretty handy. So how does the sidechain work? This is something I wanted to make sure to talk about today because there's a bunch of bad information out there on the interwebs of people talking about what does this actually do. So the sidechain controls don't have anything to do with the compressors that are per channel. They are independent. So this doesn't control the compressors. The compressors are independent per channel, and they're sound shaping, they're sculpting, they're there to talk about they're there to impact the individual quality of the sound that's on that channel. Sidechain is something totally separate. So what this is an envelope generator, and that envelope is triggered by whatever that input is. So if the input's coming from track 1, we have the first control here is the frequency control. And this is a highly resonant bandpass filter that you can kind of sweep through. So let's say you have a whole drum mix coming in here and you want the sidechain to key in on a certain frequency. You can select what that frequency is that'll trigger the sidechain. Then you have your normal threshold, so it has to pass that amount to engage the sidechain. Then over here you have the decay of that envelope, which is basically the way to, it's your release of your compressor. So how quickly it resets back to full level. So as you pick up and you go to higher tempos, you would shorten down that decay so the compressor has time to reset before the next time that it would have an input trigger. So you have a lot of control over that. Then this larger button here, this is the sidechain amount. So this goes from 0 ducking of whatever channel you've got engaged all the way up to 100%. So that means every time that envelope engages, it will duck the level 100% of whatever the level is set at the moment. So it's not 100% of the total level. So this way, if you have something very quiet, putting it up a little tiny bit doesn't kill the sound. It actually takes down just the percentage of what that is. So that's what controls the amount of the sidechain. Now, each one of these switches on here determines which tracks are sidechained by that input, whatever the input is. So channel 1 or your external sidechain in. So what's cool about this is, let's say you have a whole mix going and you want to duck like really super dramatic ducking. So let's just I'll put a whole bunch of things in here. So let's say we've got our whole mix. Now, I just engage the sidechain on every channel except my voice. I won't sidechain my voice, and I'm not going to obviously sidechain channel 1 because that's the trigger. Now, as I turn this up, you'll be able to hear the ducking. All the way up to 100%. One thing you'll notice is these LEDs that are on the volume faders, those are determining the level of the volume. So as you turn this all the way up, you'll notice you can see which tracks are ducking. So if I was to disengage the sidechain on a couple of these, you'll see that those are no longer ducking. And it's really nice to have that visual feedback in a performance, because it will show you at a moment in your performance, you may not be able to hear through the mix every single channel that you have ducked, but as you look down, you can see which channels are ducking and by how much. And so it's a great visual feedback in a dark place where you may not have the best monitoring and you may not be able to hear exactly what's going on here. But yeah, it's a great way to have visual feedback from the sidechain. So that's what you would do if you wanted to really dramatically duck and use it like as a performance effect. But what if you just wanted to duck your kick or your bass out of the way of your kick? Well, then you just turn all of those side chains off except for your bass track. You would turn the frequency down to the low end part of the kick, which would clash with your bass, and then you would make the amount subtle. So then you would get that subtle duck just to duck your bass out of the low end of your kick so that they're not layered up in that section of your track. So there's a really great way to be able to control the sidechain. So it can be used as your kind of traditional sidechain for, kick bass, or it can be used as a really dramatic performance effect. So yeah. All right, I'm gonna jump really quickly in for a couple questions because it looks like there's been a ton of them, and I'm sure Adam's been answering, which I see he is. All right, let's see here. Yes, main outputs are balanced. You asked if it's line level or modular levels. I think Adam answered that, but that's one thing that I wanted to talk about actually. So this gain that's on the top is actually gain and trim. So if you are putting in a lower level signal, like for example, I use a 1010 black box for samples often, and that signal can be a bit low. So I can gain that signal up when it comes into here, or if I've got a synth that's not particularly loud or something like that. But then I also have direct modular coming into this as well, so I can take that down and I can trim the modular signal. So that's another thing that's great, is you can have direct outputs from your modular and an input into this, and then you can also take direct in from line level stuff, and then you can set all of that with your gains. So again, giving you a lot of flexibility to be able to mix and match the gear that you use with this. So it's not always, it's not limited to being just one section of gear. And you also don't need kind of extra devices pre-mixer in order to take all of that stuff in. So yeah, that's another one. All right, looks like we've got weight, height. Height is, yeah. There we go. 1¼ inches in the front, 2¼ in the back. The footprint of this, if anybody's curious, is basically the same as a Hapex, like the rectangular footprint. It is exactly the same width as, if I move slowly, I can move over my Oxy 1. It is exactly the same width as an Oxy 1, which I can show you right here. So yeah, there's it's kind of made to fit in with all of the other gear that you would have on your desktops. Same width as push 3, same width as an Oxy 1, same width as a HapX. So you can see it's not a big monster mixer, right? This isn't having to haul around a big 6. This is really designed to be a portable mixer that you can travel with, that you can go out and play gigs with, and know that you can trust your gear that you have. So you're not having to use like the DJ mixer that's in the booth at the venue. Okay. Yes, please destroy the kick. Yes. Drive sounds nice. I agree. It sounds pretty sweet. I mean, the other thing too to keep in mind with this is an analog mixer. It's completely analog. So overloading the mixer, drive, overloading the gain, pushing the levels, you're going to get analog clipping rather than digital clipping. So you're going to get that kind of musical distortion rather than, that kind of harsh, staticky sounding clipping. So again, having a drive that's all analog, it's a beautiful thing. And one of the cool parts about this, again, because you've got so many inputs, you can take devices that have multiple outputs that are digital, run those signals into here and treat them here as your show, or during your show. So for example, the 1010 black box has 6 mono or 3 stereo outputs. So those can come into individual channels. When I played in LA with this a couple weeks ago, I was using a black box coming into multiple channels. So you can have a digital signal from that coming in here, and then you can hit it with an analog drive circuit, which is pretty cool. So if we were to, let's see here, I think. Yeah, so this is an atmosphere coming from the black box. And you can hear a whole bunch of different sounds with that. But if I hit that with the drive here, I can really drive it and distort it using an analog drive. So you're getting analog distortion. And then you mix that with a clean kick and you sidechain it. So you can have that harsh, distorted sound, but without overloading and clipping your whole mix. So another cool thing about having things analog. All right, getting all the cool technical stuff in here. Faders are linear, yes they are. Yeah, we haven't talked about the filter yet, but I will tell you about the filter in a sec. Size of an Octatrack, yes it is. Same width, it's about 1.5 inches deeper front to back than an Octatrack, but it's the same width basically as an Octatrack. You talk about the channel bleed at some point. So I think Adam will be the one to talk about all of that. But one of the things that when we were discussing this, where he started when he started out designing this was saying, okay, first and foremost, the price of entry is this thing has to sound amazing. So that's where we started with. So the way that this was designed internally is using the same kind of architecture that is in, full-size professional mixing boards. Now all the components are miniaturized, and so everything that could be done to improve the sound quality, output, minimize noise, all of that stuff has been taken care of. So as far as I know, there isn't any channel bleed. There's nothing that I've heard at all from any of the channels. But you would ask Adam about that. I'm sure he'll answer in the comments. But we kind of started out and said this has to be on par and kind of in the same family of audio output, which is super subjective, but the same family of audio output as its competitors in this kind of live hardware world, which are things like the SSL Big 6, the Zone 96, the Pioneer V10. Now, keeping in mind, those have digital to audio conversion, and those are they're designed to be digital in the end, even though they're analog in the mixer itself. Some of them, a couple of them are. And this is designed to be a truly analog mixer, kind of like the Zone 92 was, rather than the Zone 96. So it had to have that same kind of output quality. So you don't sacrifice any output quality, signal to noise ratio and headroom, all that stuff with this over those mixers. And you do gain a whole bunch of functionality. Now, of course, this isn't designed to be a studio mixer or a DJ mixer. So it doesn't have things like 4-band EQs, but that's because we felt like that was not necessary for this particular audience. If you want an EQ, you can always put an EQ between a particular instrument and this, or on your output if that's important to you. But quite frankly, I feel like the timbre and the EQing of sounds should be handled in the instrument themselves. And then when it comes into here, this is for mixing all of those already taken care of sounds into your kind of final output mix as a performer. Okay. So let's see here. Filter, we'll talk about in a second. Yes, so, yeah, never liked the sound of the V10 because it's digital. Yeah, I mean, it's, again, that's why I said it's very subjective. When people say, is it as good as, it's like, okay, well, it's as loud as, it's as clean as, it's as whatever, but as good as is very subjective, right? There's a reason why people like, vintage Neve mixing desks and SSLs and stuff, because they have a character. It's not because they're objectively better. It's because they're subjectively interesting. So yeah, it's interesting. So yeah, I mean, I see the question about crosstalk and bleed. I haven't heard any yet, but go for it. Definitely give it a try. But yeah, go for it. Let's see here. If you make an effects unit similar to the Pioneer effects inside their mixers, it would crush. I agree. And this is designed to work with other stuff. Now, who knows? You have to ask Adam. Maybe they'll make some stuff at some point. But in the meantime, you have things like, we were just talking about this the other day, having an H90 with something like this gives you an amazing amount of control over the effects, which is great. You've got 4 stereo sends and returns in this mixer. So being able to have an H90, it's pretty sweet. So because the H90 has 2 different independent paths, being able to use that, it's pretty sweet. So I see Adam's answering exactly the same thing I'm answering right now. So one thing we didn't talk about is the filter. So we've talked about a whole bunch of the things that this thing has so far. Sidechain, all of that stuff. We have 2 effect sends per channel, as I mentioned, but there's also 2 output buses. So 2 send and return mix buses that you can do whatever you want with. So if you notice, every channel here has a main, B, or A on the, it's selectable to those things. So this can be used for a couple of different things. It can be used to route that channel out through that output, where there's also stereo input, and then there's mix A and B controls down here, so you control the input coming back in. So that's used for bus processing or as an insert effect. So you've got send effects, and then you've got 2 insert effects as well. So if you wanted to say assign all of your drums to A and create kind of an A drum bus, send that out through drum processing, through pedals or any outboard equipment that you want to use, and then bring it back into the main mix, and then you can send that out as well. Or let's say you have one track that's maybe a vocal and you wanted to send that through a vocal processing chain, you can do that and only affect that chain by assigning it to its own set of outputs. So you can, those outputs can be different things, mix or individual, but they're all assignable by channel. Now, if there's nothing plugged into those are also able to assign the filter, which is what we're going to talk about next. So what the filter is in this is a completely analog, stereo, high pass, low pass, DJ style filter with separate resonance control for the high pass side and the low pass side. So again, giving you a lot of flexibility. For example, when I perform, I like a resonant high pass and a non-resonant low pass. So I might have my normal settings, something like this, and then when I use the filter, I've got it like that. But I can still go in and control if I want to add more resonance for kind of a dynamic buildup. But just to give you an idea again, what this sounds like with a whole mix, we're just gonna bring up a bunch of stuff here. Change up my side channel a little bit. So like if I wanted to do a breakdown, and it does have an on-off switch as well. So if I wanted to do a breakdown, being able to have, I can take the resonance down a little. And then once I get up here, rather than having to try to go back and hit the middle again, I can just disengage it. Right? Now we can do that same thing with no resonance, just so you can hear it. So you can hear the non-resonant version. And then we'll go back down, we'll hit it with 50% resonance. And then we'll hit it with 100%. Well, maybe not 100 because I don't want to blow your ears out. That's 75%. And then you can disengage, take that all the way off. And we can do the same with the low pass. So let's do it with no resonance. Whoops, engage it here. And let's do it with 50% resonance. And then let's do it with 75%. So then we can kind of put it on our preferred settings. Then you've got this as something that you could engage as you create something in your performance. Something also that's really nice about the filter is that there's a detent in the center. So as you're doing this in the dark in a performance, you can actually find that center spot on the mixer really, really easily, or on the filter really easily, so that you can kind of grab it when you need it. So again, keeping in mind, this is fully analog, fully stereo, high pass, low pass filter with individual resonance control. Adam can go into the details of how he made this, but it's kind of crazy with how the number of filters that have to be synchronized into this one control to be able to make it feel like it's one filter sweeping high pass, low pass. It's pretty amazing. A couple of other features that we can talk about before we go to some more questions is there's an individual cue per channel, as you see here. And those send things out to the Q mix, which there's a headphone jack here in the front. I don't know if you can see it down below here, what I'm listening on, monitoring on. So you can send things out Q, you've got your headphone volume, and then you've got a Q mix switch, just like you do on a DJ mixer. So if you want to only hear the thing you're cueing, you can switch it over to Q, hit Q, just hear that one bit. Or if you want to hear your whole mix and monitor, like when I play, I use in-ear monitors. So I can just put them in the headphone jack, keep it on the mix all the time so I can monitor my mix in my in-ears. So it's a way to control that. Let's see what else. Channel 8, as you can see here, it is, you can see that my voice is on it. You can see the level. Channel 8 also has a mic input in the back, which is TRS. And no, sorry, it's 1/4 inch, not TRS. It's 1/4 inch input, and it has its own amplifier. So you're coming in with that specific channel. There's a switch on the back so you can engage it to be a mic channel, or just leave it as your normal input channel. And important to know too that even when the mic is put into this, you can also use the other side in the crossfade mode, and you can still include something else on that channel as well. It just would share the volume fader and the effects of the mic. So so you can have different stuff in there. Let's see what else. All of the inputs on the back are all 1/4 inch, and there's stereo inputs and outputs. And again, they can be dual mono inputs as well. I think Adam mentioned before that the main outs are balanced as well. And let's see what else. Power supply, power cable. Yeah, so the back, if you look on the Boredbrain page or on Facebook, you can see there's a good picture of the back. I can't really lift it up now because of the way it's all connected here, but everything's 1/4 inch on the back, all of the inputs and outputs. So stereo ends, 4 stereo send and return pairs. So yeah. Anyway, let's see here. What do we got question-wise? Lots and lots of questions. Looks like Adam's answering all of them. Thank you, Adam. So I don't have to go back and answer all the questions. Very excited about the filter. So am I. Coming from DJ background, it's crucial. It is. Having a master filter is pretty amazing. It's, yeah. Love the symmetry of the design. I agree that when Adam showed me the first drawings of this, or the first mock-up, and I saw it like this, it was so cool because I was always thinking to myself, like, why did DJ mixers have everything on the right? Why isn't it in the center? Like, it's definitely more symmetrical. It's interesting too because, again, having different buses, you can group things together and have them make sense. So like if you wanted to have your drums be on an A bus and your melodic stuff be on a B bus, you could have your drums on one side, your melodics on the other. You can really, there's a lot of flexibility with the design. That said as well, the mix buses, the A and B mix buses work really, really well and were really designed to work really well with the Octatrack with EasyBot's performance template for you doing performance effects. So that requires one set of stereo inputs to be drums and one to be melodics so that the different effects, which are kind of designed for each one of those, can work properly. And with this, you can assign all your drums. So let's say you have only 2 channels of drums, or let's say you have 6 channels of drums. You can assign all those to A, send those out the A output into the Octatrack, send your melodics assigned to B, out the B output into the Octatrack, and then take 2 separate outputs from the Octatrack into the 2 returns, and then you've got use of your master filter and all of that stuff on those returns before it goes out to your main output here. So it's a way, if you're using the EasyBot template, it's a way to actually make that even more effective, even more useful. It doesn't really replace it. It's designed to work with it. So that template uses the Octatrack as a mixer, but you're really only mixing 2 channels, and then you have to pre-mix those channels before they get there. With this, you've got a real analog mix environment that you can then send out, and that seamlessly integrates with that. So you can use the looping effects, you can use the beat repeats and stutters and things that are, looping only looping only drums and not melodics, or looping only melodics and not drums. And so this gives you a way to control the mix going in. And as you're going through a performance, if you have multiple pieces of gear, if you want to change those outputs going into something like that performance template, you can change them on the fly. So let's say you were using one machine as a drum for a certain section, you can assign it to A, and let's say in the next track or the next section of your performance, you want to use that as a melodic voice, you can just switch it to B, and then you can send it out to the Octatrack and use use the performance effects correctly. It doesn't have to be pre-set up only in one way. And if you don't want everything to go out to that, they can just be set to main, which is the middle of the switch here. And that bypasses the A and B outputs, and it just goes straight to the main. So again, you have a ton of different flexibility with how you use the outputs from this. I've seen a whole ton of people that want to know when and how much. So the $2 million questions. The when is pre-sales are going to be going up live probably in about a month or so. We just have to get final pricing and timing and all of that stuff, because we don't want to do pre-sales and have it not be correct. And as far as pricing goes, kind of same answer, because still getting the final sourcing of all the stuff, making sure what it's going to cost to assemble and all of those things, but shooting for about the price of an Octatrack-ish. But again, that kind of final amount is still to be determined. So keep an eye for that. The interesting thing is when you look at what it's compared to, like a Zone 96 or a V10 or a Big 6, those are, you know, $2,500 to $4,000, kind of depending on which one you're looking at. So not only will this be, will you not sacrifice output quality with this, you gain a ton of functionality and you're going to get it for significantly less than any of those mixers. So they aren't really necessarily designed for performance, all of them, any of them, or at least not this kind of performance. So that's why this could be kind of slimmed down to be exactly what's needed. So we've been kind of talking about how the idea with this was for it to have all the stuff you need for live performance of electronic music and none of the stuff you don't need. So it just keeps it focused. Not trying to be something for everything. The faders have physical resistance. They don't feel loose. I mean, they basically feel, they're not super resistive, but like, I mean, I have a TR-1000 sitting right here next to this, and they're similar. They're slightly less resistive, but they're similar to what the TR-1000 is. Very, very similar to the Xcelon Eurorack module, because if I'm not wrong, they're the exact same sliders. So, let's see here. 10 out of 10 product. I agree. Good job, Adam. Yeah, there is a lot of circuits in there. Must have one. I agree. Everybody needs one of these. Everyone who's serious about live electronic music performance and using multiple bits of gear, right? If you're playing live and your live set is Ableton, well, this is probably not something that you need. You're already doing that in Ableton and you're going to use a MIDI controller. But if you want to have multiple inputs on multiple channels, you want to be able to affect those signals differently. You want to be able to mix them in a performance mixer that's actually, you know, something that you can use and play as an instrument, then this is something that you're going to look for. You know, and one of the things for me that defines a performance mixer is the faders. You know, there's a number of mixers out there, you know, a bunch of mixers out there that have knobs for mixing, which is cool if you only want to mix two things at one time. But with this, I can bring up everything at the same time. I can bring down these three while I bring this one up, right? I can control everything all together with my fingers rather than going in and trying to do one, then the other, then the other, then the other, and do it fast. I can bring up, you know, four things while I'm doing the filter at the same time. So again, the idea of a performance mixer is that it is performative. It's something that you're going to use to perform the mix, not only just the mixer part where you're going to functionally mix together signals. You know, there's a lot of mixers out there that can functionally mix multiple signals together and then be EQ'd and kind of set, and then you just kind of walk away and let it do its thing, or let your show do its thing. This is not that. This is a mixer that is made to be played like an instrument, right? Your hands are going to be on this throughout your performance. You're going to be using sends and bringing things in and filtering and changing things up, changing settings, adjusting your mix, all of that during a show, rather than kind of set it up and just kind of let it be as it is through the whole thing. You know, the other mixer that I've had people ask questions about to compare this to is the TX6 from Teenage Engineering, which is a digital performance mixer. It's not analog, but it has a ton of functionality, but it's really, really tiny. And one of the things I've always said about that is if they made it 3 or 4 times bigger than it is, it would have been a way better performance mixer for me, because I could have actually performed with it. Right now, you can't get in there to the knobs. And one of the things Adam spent a lot of time on with this is the knob placement and spacing, and making sure that the knobs that you're going to be using in a performance are the larger ones. The ones that you're going to kind of use less are the smaller ones, so that you can really kind of grab on to the things you need. They have really nice resistance, and they feel really smooth. And so again, it's really made to interact with. It's not made to kind of set and forget like a lot of kind of functional mixers are. This is really designed to be your performance tool as you're playing. Yeah, so anyway. Very annoying to change my home setup to live setup, which is currently geared towards using DJ mixers in clubs. Yeah, and the great thing about this is for people who do use DJ mixers and who are, best case scenario, you're a big enough artist that you can ask for a DJ mixer on your rider that will be used only by you during the show, so that you can go and do a sound check before your performance. You can set up the mixer exactly the way you want it, and then nobody touches it until you perform. That's kind of your best case scenario. What normally happens is you're going to use the same mixer as other people. If you're playing later in the night, by the time you get it, all the settings are changed. And so whatever you did during sound check doesn't mean anything anymore. And you're spending your first 20 minutes of your set adjusting the sound of that output mixer. So with something like this, you know that it's your piece of gear and you're going to be the one using it. So you can set it up exactly the way you want to set it up, and then you can take it with you. And because it's small enough and portable enough to travel with, it's something that you can bring into a DJ booth or put onto a table with your other gear and leave it there and have it be your own performance setup rather than having to use somebody else's performance setup. So that's really what it was designed for. Sorry, all over the place here. Oh, one thing quick to talk about the idea of home setup versus live setup. So the SL in Xcelon SL is not Circo Live, as somebody asked me the other day, although I think that's pretty funny. Was actually designed to be studio and live, because this is a live performance instrument. But if you want to use this in a small home studio where you have limited space and you can't put, a big 6 or a huge desktop mixer, and you want to be able to use this to record your hardware setups, being able to use this as a mixer and then have individual outputs that are TRS outputs per channel means that you can plug this directly into your audio interface. When I perform live, I use a 1010 Blue Box as my multi-track recorder. And so I just put that right next to my setup. I can patch each one of these out into the Blue Box and into the inputs there. And I just hit record at the beginning of the show. I play my whole show, and then I have pre-fader recordings of everything that I did. So if I want to go back and take those and turn those into a track, if I want to cut those up and make those into samples and load them into the black box for use in my next performance or whatever, I have that flexibility. So being able to do that in your studio is another thing you can do with this mixer. If you were to have, your kind of traditional audio interface, you can take these outputs into your audio interface, and then you can combine this with your studio setup. Something else that we showed at the Bootleg Friends event, which I'm not sure exactly when it will be out. I don't think there's a set date, but sometime soon after this is out, is the Optics SL, which the Optics is a analog to digital conversion box. So you can plug your analog outputs into the Optics, and then you can send those via ADAT to your push 3, to your audio interface, or whatever you have that has ADAT control. It's input and output from ADAT. So if you wanted to do a performance, let's say with the Xcelon SL and a push 3, and you had the Optics SL box, you could connect to the push 3 with just 2 ADAT cables, one for in and one for out. These output sends can be sent out, and you can use all of the Ableton effects and have those return back. And you can take your digital tracks that you have set up and your digital synths that you have set up in Ableton and the push 3, take those out via ADAT to individual tracks here. and then they can be treated with analog drive and compression and all of that stuff here in an analog mix environment. And then you could even send your main output back and put on a mastering chain if you wanted to in the Push 3. So being able to integrate with other things is really handy with something like the Optics SL, which will be out at some point. I'm sure Adam will be happy to not say exactly when that's going to come out, but it will be not too far off. Let's see here. Are the faders the same length as the Xcelon? Yes, they are. 45 millimeter, correct. What else? I love the design of this layout, totally agree. Very playable. I have 3 live artists playing in the club tonight. One has a massive Soundcraft mixer on his rider, the other a DJ mixer, and we have to sound check for an hour each before the show. Yeah, so as an example, one of the things I always tell my students that take my live performance course, the final module, the final segment of the course is how to play shows. And one of the things that I always tell them is don't be that guy. Don't be the one who shows up and it's like, I need all the space and all the deck and all the stuff in order to be able to do that. And something that I love about this mixer is that it helps you not be that guy. It helps you show up and say, look, I only need this little bit of space to get all this functionality. I don't need you as a promoter to get, to track me down a great mixer. I don't need to trust you as a promoter that the mixer you bring won't have scratchy faders and a bad, a channel strip that's gone bad or whatever. So I know that I can verify my gear before I travel and before I go to a show, and I can set it up and I'm good to go. It allows me to be a lot more independent as well. So, yes. Okay, so the filter assignment, that was the other thing. So as I mentioned before, this A and B can be for assigning output buses, but it can also be assignable for filter. So if you just want to filter one thing, so one of the things that I was doing before is I took my voice off of the filter assignment. So if I bring everything up slightly so you can still hear my voice, and then I engage the filter, I can filter everything out and my voice still stays unfiltered. And you can do that with any number of tracks. So let's say you put everything on main except for your kick, and then you have your kick on A and it's assigned to A. I can just filter the kick and everything else stays fine, right? Or you can do, I don't know, if you want to do your kicks and hats, but it keeps everything else the same. So yeah, the assignments per channel can be used to assign the filter, or it can be used to assign to output buses as well. Let's see. You can never have enough buses. I agree. Mono or stereo inputs. They're all stereo, but they can also be dual mono. So every one of the 8 tracks is stereo. Every one of the effects sends and returns are stereo. And then all of those inputs can be dual mono. You can switch into crossfade mode right here. And if you're in crossfade mode, the balance panning knob becomes a crossfade between the 2 mono signals. So yes, very, very flexible. Yes, that was the other thing, eMix. If you're in the Richmond, Virginia area, which is where these are made, Boredbrain is doing an event on March 7th, which is called eMix. And it's kind of like a synth expo. There's a DIY thing. There's some live performances. There's all kinds of stuff. So if you come to that, you'll be able to mess around with the Xcelon SL. It will definitely be there. And that is in Richmond, Virginia on March 7th. Let's see, anyone mid-Atlantic? Yes, come to eMix. You killed it, Boredbrain Music. I totally agree, they killed it. Let's see, if only Blue Box had ADAT. Yeah, I agree. I mean, yes, the only recorders, but you have something like the Push 3, and again, I keep referring back to that because it's kind of like it it is all the things. So if you wanted to record multi-track, you could multi-track into a push 3, and not only multi-track in, but multi-track into different stems. And yeah, it's pretty crazy. Being a nobody means you never get to sound check. That's a great point, because with that other mixer, like I said, best case scenario, you get to sound check. Worst case scenario, you don't get to sound check, and you're playing on a mixer that you don't know if it is fully working or not. It may have something wrong with it. It may have something stuck or not working or scratchy or whatever, or switch that doesn't work. And you won't know that until you're in the middle of your set, which stresses you out. You've got to take care of that. Bringing something like this, you can set your levels the way you like them, and then you can just plug your gear in, and you know how it's going to sound because you've used it before. You've used it in your own setup at home. So, yes, I agree. Got to see this in person at Boot Club Friends and play it, and it's built like a tank. I agree. It is very, very high quality. It is not heavy, which I agree with you. Now, the final weight, I saw the question in there about the weight of this. Final weight is yet to be determined because they're deciding right now between an aluminum or steel enclosure. And that's going to determine the final weight of it. And then the end caps right now for these demo models are 3D printed, but they'll be molded. And so we'll see what those weigh as well. So knowing exactly how much it's going to weigh, there's no way to know right now, but it's very solid. It's very well built. The knobs feel really great. He didn't, that was one of the things that I loved about collaborating on this with Boredbrain, is that working with people like Adam, he doesn't compromise on quality. So the stuff that's here is going to be top quality components, top quality design. It's not just like, okay, let's see how cheaply we can make something to make as much money as possible off of it. It's like, okay, what can we fit into this that can be the best quality that we can do at a price that people can afford? And so it was really nice to work with people that care about quality and they care about who's going to use it. All of our conversations back and forth as I was collaborating with them on this were about, genuinely asking me questions about how would you use this? How would, when we talked about like the side chain, how would you interact with it? How would that work its way into your performance? And because of that, Adam's a live performer and he uses gear in one way and I use gear in a very different way. So being able to say, well, I could use it that way, but this is the way I would prefer to use it. And then what was so cool was to be able to see the mixture come together and have him say, okay, now you can do it both of those ways. We set it up so that for the person who wants it like this can do that, and the person who wants it like this can do that. So it was amazing. I mean, it was a really, really amazing process to go through this. Yeah. So, can't believe you made a 16-channel mixer with 2 effects, 2 bus, compression, and filter in that form factor. Yeah, I couldn't believe it either. If you could see, I don't know if he'll ever show this, but he showed me a picture of the main circuit board of this, and it absolutely blew my mind. Like, how much is squeezed into such a tiny space to be able to have all of these different pathways and options and switches and controls in a completely analog device. Like if it's code, you can code to reroute things. But with this, every single option of everything had to be routed analog, right? It has to be a physical routing of a signal that the electrical signal can pass through. So it was crazy, crazy, crazy. Let's see. Aluminum as it's a live mixture for dragging around on flights. Yeah, there's something to be said for both, for sure. 80% of the development was designing the layout, features, and UI, and 20% was making the circuit. Yeah, well, yes, but the deciding on the layout was months and months and months, and the circuit was still weeks and weeks. So it was still no small amount of work. So yeah, he did a great job. That was the other thing that was pretty amazing, how quickly it all came together in the end. This prototype right here is V1. This is the first working prototype that was made, and everything works. And so to be able to design something that complex and have it come out and just work was, again, something that totally blew my mind. Now, obviously there's going to be things that are going to need to be adjusted and changed and modified, but most of those are like dialing things in, getting feedback about, oh yeah, it would be cool if this acted slightly different, or if, you know, some of the labeling was slightly different, or the arrows pointing in different directions. That's like, you know, yeah, little details. But as far as the actual kind of functionality of the mixer, it already works the way it's supposed to work, you know, with a few fine tunes. So very, very, very excited about it. So anyway, just to show you a couple other things like that I used when I was performing with this, and just so I can show you, if I pull back the view here, just to give you an idea. This is the mixer right here, and connected into this, I have my modular setup, I have a 1010 black box, I have a push 3, I have a TR1000, and I have a poly-N synth over here on the side, all connected into this, into their own channels, sometimes split. So for example, my kick drum is coming from a module in my case, and it is coming direct out from the module into channel 1. So you were asking about modular input versus line level. So modular level coming into just that one channel. Then I have the rest of my mix coming into its own channel here. The TR1000 obviously is its own little sub mixer. So it has its own faders, its own ability to do stuff. And then that's coming in all on one channel as well. But because it has individual outputs, I was messing around with this the other day, and instead of having the output coming from my kick drum in the case, I just took the output from the TR1000 and sent it directly into channel 1. So then I had control over my sidechain from the one that's coming from here. Another way that I messed around with setting this up is the output on the TR1000 can be set up to also be a trigger output. So I set the trigger up to trigger the drum in my modular case, and then output that into channel 1. So I could sequence that from here, and that whole mix was still going into its own channel. And I was using the channel for the sequencing of the kick drum to also have a secondary kind of sub rumble on it. So many different ways to configure things, kind of depending on all of the gear that you're using. So anyway, that gets us back to what we've got here. So I'll mess with something a little bit here. See what we've got. Take my face off here so you can see what's going on. So I can bring up, so this is my TR1000. I can bring this up, and then I can use my submix on there. So if I want to bring in Haas, pre-fader effects. Anyway, just to give you an idea of how I use this for, you know, as something that if you notice like things that I'm adjusting during this, like I'll notice like, oh, this doesn't fit exactly the way I want it to. So I'm going to use that tilt EQ. So I'm going to take out some of those lows and push the highs a little bit because that's where I have space in my mix versus where the original maybe atmospheric sample is from. So it gives me a way to kind of move things around and place sounds exactly where I want them in my mix. So anyway, why not just use the kick from the TR-1000? To be honest, I mean, brutally honest, the kick from the Ohmforce Bohm is, as a modern kick drum, is significantly better sounding than the kick from the TR-1000, including the vintage 909s, the 808s, the samples that are in there, whatever. There's some good stuff in there, but the Ohmforce Bohm is such a better kick. Just the output quality, the flexibility, the ability to adjust during a performance, because I use only that kick for my whole performance, but I have the flexibility to change all of the sounds. So it can be, you know, super punchy low end, or it can be, you know, a really transient heavy. It can sound like an 808, it can sound like a 909, but it's a much more modern version of those. So it's cleaner, it cuts through a mix better. So yeah, it's that's why not from the TR-1000. I've messed around with both. Layering them is cool, but I definitely need the Bohm kick more than the TR-1000 kick. So anyway, let's see. Yes, it is. Thank you for answering. Yes, the Ohm kick is better. I believe Boredbrain will have a lot of success with this mixer and set a new industry. I agree, totally. Totally agree. How about the temperature? I mean, honestly, it's not hot. And it's been on this whole time. So yeah, even underneath. I mean, it's, for being an all analog mixer, it's, you know, it's not like an analog synth. For some reason, those really heat up a lot. So like I had an Electron Syntact for quite a while. That thing would get so hot that you couldn't even keep it on your lap. Like it was really, really hot. This one is like, you hardly notice at all. So it's warm like anything, but I don't feel it any warmer than any of my other gear here. So anyway, yeah, that's the long answer. What was that? TR-909 made the TR-1000 going up made the 909s go up in price. Interesting. I don't know why. The 909s in the TR-1000 are pretty awesome, but it's still not as good as the Bohm for a modern kick. Is it stable? Are there vents? Yes, it is stable, and yes, there are vents in the bottom. Does it get hot enough to heat a yurt? Are you doing your Dawless yurt jams with this thing? Let's see. Sonic Academy kick in VST in a module. I think it's even way better than that. Honestly, I have not found a VST, and I've been producing in the DAW for a couple decades, and I have never heard a VST that comes even close to sounding as good as the Bohm. I've never heard a hardware kick that comes close to sounding as good as the Bohm. Actually, I take that back. The battering ram from Shockmod, as just a kick by itself, also sounds outstanding. But the Bohm, like the whole kick system, like one of the things that you were hearing here. So this is just the kick by itself. And then if you add in the low end to it, this is the sub, which you have control over the rhythmic taps of that, or this can be white noise or reverb. Or it can just be taps. I like it down in this sub area though. So anyway, it's a whole other level. Just and this is coming from somebody who has used all the drums. It's like really I've tried everything out there. And it's, for me, it's the best one, at least for me personally. Let's see, where are we at? Temperature's fine, there we go. What's the spec on the headroom? That's an Adam question. This pricing has not been announced yet. On the screen, the white on gray caps on some knobs kind of blend in. Is there enough contrast? Yes, in person, there's plenty of contrast on those to be able to see the white line on the gray cap. That's just my definition of my cameras and my lighting. But yeah, there's no issue seeing this. There you go, plus 18 dBu of headroom. Yes, limited by the operating voltage. Try Kick 3. I have used Kick 3 extensively, and this is whole other level. Whole other level. Nah. I don't know what nah means, but okay, nah. Love the Bohm, awesome. I agree. My favorite. Hey, what's going on? Cool. What other questions do you guys have? Happy to answer whatever else. I think we've kind of gone over all the main stuff, but yeah, if there's any kind of niche, interesting questions, let's see if there's anything that I didn't go over. Oh, there's a mute per channel, which is cool. Yeah, mute my voice as well. But yes, there's a mute per channel. Those are nice and clicky as well, just like the cues. Yeah, you've got the assignability per channel that we talked about. The outputs, again, pre-fader, but post-drive and post-EQ. So you can kind of get that, yeah, together to go out. External sidechain in. There's also an aux in stereo, so if you want to bring in another source. And then you've got a master record out, which is TRS as well. Here, let me take my face off there so you can see. So there's a, yeah, aux in and record out. So the record out is TRS. So if you just want to record your master mix, you can just go out from there into a little Zoom recorder, you're good, or into whatever you want to record into. So again, if you're going to be recording everything, and this goes back to the way I'm doing my multi-track recordings, is I've got a 1010 Blue Box that can take 12 mono or 6 stereo inputs to record them. So if you wanted to go out with, you know, monos from multiple channels here, or you could combine channels and go into one or whatever, and then you could just take your record out and go into one of the stereo channels, then you record your master mix and your stems of your different outputs from here. So a lot of different options for this, for sure. Let's see here. Ohms on headphone output. That's another Adam question. I don't know. What does this cost? As we said, it's not finalized yet. It's going to depend all on kind of final cost to make, but we're shooting for around the cost of an Octatrack. So significantly less than the competitive mixers. Could you video where you run all of the outs of your TR-1000 into it? I mean, I could, but to be honest, there's not a real reason to do that. What would be a better video that I will do eventually is I will take an Electron analog rhythm, which has multiple outputs, and run those into this, because the things that this has per channel, the TR-1000 also has per channel. So it is its own drum mixer. So all I'm doing is I'm bringing in my master mix into here so that I've got, you know, so that it goes into my main mix so that I can use master filter and so that I can use the outputs. But each of the channels on the TR-1000 has what this has per channel as well. So there's not a real reason to do that. And having, you know, mix faders per channel and all of that already in the TR-1000, I don't know that I would ever use it that way. only because I wouldn't want to waste the channels here when I can already do that in the TR-1000. So basically the way this setup is right now, the way everything is set up here is the whole modular case is going through an Xcelon mixer, like a regular modular mixer, and then that's coming into a channel on the SL. The kick is coming separate into its own channel. The TR-1000 is its own sub-mixer coming into a channel. Then I have each, the black box, the push 3, and the poly and synth all coming into their own inputs. And then channel 8 is my mic input for my lav mic that I have here. So that's how I'm using this. So I've got actually three sub-mixers. One is for the modular, in the modular case. One is for the TR-1000, in the TR-1000. And the other one is in the push 3, mixing all those channels, and each one is coming into their own channel. Now, any one of those could be output into direct channels. So if you want to split something off and have it come into a channel, you can. And another thing, that's one of the great things about this, is that let's say from your different outputs on the push 3, you wanted to have 2 different buses coming to 2 different channels, you could do that. Or if you just wanted to break off like your kick and your hat from the TR-1000 into their own channels here, you could. Like for the modular, I have my kick broken out and it's not coming in as part of the main, but if I wanted to have each separate voice on a channel, I can just plug those in. So when I played the show in LA a couple weeks ago, I had a little modular skiff that was a 3U 84 HP, and I had 2 melodic voices, a hi-hat, a percussion voice, and a kick all in there, and they were all coming into the SL on their own channels. And then I was using the 1010 black box with multiple outputs from it going into multiple channels. So like I had one output that was just a clap from the black box coming into its own channel. So I had control over just the clap on one track. And because I didn't have the TR-1000 with me, where on the TR-1000, I obviously have my own fader to control just the clap. But this was a way for me for a much smaller gig, to scale down to a much smaller thing where I could have some modular and some samples. And if I wanted, I could have had like one synth on the side and bring those different things into the SL. So that's kind of the biggest feature of the SL, is the fact that it's so flexible, right? So that you can bring different things into it in different ways and control each one of them individually. So it's just, it gives you a ton of flexibility. For me, one of the things that I say to my students all the time is that the 2 most important things for me for a live performance is my sequencer and my mixer, because those are the 2 things that those dictate the workflow. And then outside of that, the synths or samplers or modular or groovebox or whatever, drum machines, those are all interchangeable depending on what my preferences are, or what the case of the individual show is. But being able to keep the workflow the same between a sequencer and your mixer, for me, is great, because then I can just swap things in and out as I want, and I don't have to worry about changing up complete workflows for every event. So I use the Oxy One sequencer, which is controlling kind of everything here, and except for like some things like the TR-1000 is sequenced internally. But being able to have that kind of control is for me really important in a live performance. So let's see. Footprint, it looks small. It is the same footprint as a Hapax. It's the same width as an Octatrack, and it's about 1.5 inches deeper front to back than an Octatrack is. So yes, that is the size. Let's see, for your set in LA, pre-Buchla and Friends, how much role did the mixer play during your set? 100%. It was the only mixer I was using. So like I said, my modular was, every channel was into a different channel in here. And the only other thing that I was using was the 1010 black box with some different samples in it that were each going into their own channels on the mixer as well. And then it was the modular was being controlled from the Oxy, was being sequenced from the Oxy, and the loops in the black box were clocked to the Oxy as well. So other than sound sources and sequencing, everything else was this mixer. So everything was coming in through this, and all of the performance aspect of it was here. Oh, I also had in my little modular skiff, I also had two FX XL effects units, and those were my two effects sets. So I had one set up as a delay and one set up as a reverb. And then I was using everything from the mixer. Okay. Do the AB buses work without connecting them to external gear, but just to route to the filter? Yes, they do. If they're not connected to external gear, let's say you wanted to just filter this channel, you could put it on A, and then the filter has a switch between A and B. You switch that to A. There is an override up here under the master volume, which is filter all. So let's say you have a couple different channels assigned and you're just filtering just those. And for a moment, you want to filter everything. You just switch to filter all, it overrides it. This becomes your master bus filter. And then when you switch back, you go back to your AB switchable filter assignments. So yes, the ABs can assign separately. Let's see, headphone output impedance. There you go, the answer for that. Where are we at? Are you using special cables from Eurorack 3.5 to 6.3? I mean, not special cables. I'm using these cables, which is they're HOSA 3.5 to 1/4 inch or 6.3, depending on where you're watching this from. But yeah, so there's a lot of those cables in this setup. So anything that you can see plugged in back here that's colored, those are regular 1/4 inch to 1/4 inch. So those are coming from the TR1000 and the push and actually from my modular, all of that is 1/4 inch out. But then individual things, for example, kick drum is 3.5 to 1/4 inch. My effects send and returns, because I'm using modules in my case instead of pedals. So those are going out 1/4 to 3.5 in, and then they're going 3.5 out from the effect to 1/4 inch in. So yeah, but just being able to cable is all you need. There's no conversion other than the size of the cable. Can you go out a track and back into the other to overdrive a kick drum? You can go out of a track and back into another one, but you've got an analog drive per channel, so you don't really need to do any kind of creative routing to overdrive the kick drum. Yeah, but yes, you can. That's one of the cool things with the individual outs per channel. You can patch out from a channel into another channel, so you can do any of that stuff that you would want to. But so yes, you can. Where are we at? Do you have any experience or thoughts on the Ericsson's Hex inverter kicks versus the TR1000 versus the Bohm? I mean, I've played with all of them. I've used them all. And again, it's just like sound quality. It's all going to be subjective, and it's going to be subjective to what music you're making and what your individual use is. If I was going to rate those three that you just listed in order, I would prefer the Ohm Force Bohm first because of its output quality and its flexibility. I would say the TR1000 would be second because of those same things. It's very flexible, being able to layer analog with analog or analog with digital or sample with sample or analog with sample. So being able to layer those and create kick drums is really cool. And the output quality is great, and there's a master drive, and there's an individual drive, and there's all kinds of cool stuff. So yeah, I would say that would be it. And then the Erica Hex drum is cool, and it's fine, but for me, it just needs a lot of processing. So you would need to have an overdrive, and you would need to compress it, and you would so it needs a lot more to get to kind of the same level of output quality as like the Bohm or the TR1000, in my opinion. So anyway, let's see what else. The size of a legal sheet of paper. Exactly. That's a great way to describe it, actually. When does it come out? This summer. Yeah, you don't have to use the stereo inserts as well. Like, so if when we were talking about selecting A or B to select for the filter, you've also got A and B, they're set up as A and B stereo returns, but those could just be inputs. And then you've got level control here over those inputs. So for example, if you were using the Boredbrain Xcelon mixer in your modular case and you had certain things assigned to A and B outputs, which that has, you could run the A output and the B output into the A and B of this and have that be a submix of those separate channels in there, or totally separate devices. Like, for example, I probably wouldn't connect it the way I have it here, where I came out of the push 3 into its own channel. I would probably come out of the push 3 into one of those mix returns or one of those bus returns, because I've already got effects. I don't necessarily need the send effects. And I would just want it for like master filter, for example. So yeah, I would probably connect it that way rather than the way I have it set up here. But this way you've got full like effect sends and all that stuff. So it's a little bit of overkill, I believe. Got something up there, we go. Let's see, does the mixer have direct outs per channel, pre or post? Yes, they are pre-fader, but post gain and post EQ on the outputs. So each one of these up top, they're TRS 3.5 millimeter. So you can use the cable to make those go out to a 1/4 inch output or splitter, or like, for example, as I mentioned, I go to a 1010 blue box. So I just go TRS to TRS, 3.5. Anyway, let's see, priced right, I'll be getting it. I agree. If priced right. Well, yeah, in my opinion, it will be priced way better than I had originally expected. Banana for scale. If I had a banana, it's funny, I was thinking about how could I show the size of this on the stream, and I think the easiest way is to show it in relation to other devices. So like, here's an iPhone. So you can see related to an iPhone, right? Or we've got a 1010 black box. Did I just disconnect something? 1010 black box is this width. I can't pull it all the way over here. What else can I show you? Anyway, I already showed with an Oxy One sequencer. It's exactly the same width as an Oxy One sequencer. So it'll just give you, those are a few little ideas of this, of what it is, what the size is. So yeah, push that. There we go. All right, let's see. What else? Yeah, hands. I was going to use my hands. That was my other thing. It's like I could show you it compared to my hands, but you have no idea if I have gigantic hands or tiny little micro hands. I was about to name a person with tiny little hands, but tiny little hands. My hands are basically like normal size, not huge, not small, and that's this. And again, when you talk about usability, that goes back to what I was mentioning about having faders. Being able to use all your hands, all your fingers at once to do things and adjust levels this way. You can't do that on a mixer with rotary controls over volume. It's just not possible. So that's why for me, that is not a performance mixer if it doesn't have faders. All right. Hey, what's going on? I'm excited for this thing. So am I. I'm excited to finally be able to talk about it. I was under gag order for a while, so happy to be able to get the word out there. Modbang got those 8¼ cables. That would be great. Support Matt's cable business. I would be all about that. It's gonna be my new mixer. Hope pre-order starts soon. Pre-orders are gonna start in about a month. keep an eye on the Boredbrain website for those. Hex drum kicks are awesome, but I'm still using the battering ram for main kick. I'm using the hex kicks for subs or rumbles. Yeah, and that's kind of the thing, is that's where I feel like with the hex drum, if you're gonna use that as your main kick, it needs processing. It needs to be driven and compressed so that you get the punch. Where with the Bohm or the TR1000 or the battering ram, you get the punch straight out of the box. You don't have to add anything outside of that, which is pretty cool. Like this kick that you're hearing right now, this kick, that is straight out of the Bohm. There's no processing. If you notice, the compressor is all the way down, the EQ is in the middle, there's no drive on this at all. That is coming straight out of the box. So to be able to get to that quality with something like the hex drum or the kick-ain or like those other ones, you do need to do some stuff to it, right? You can't just do that right straight out of the box, unfortunately. Where are we at here? What about Octatrack setup with AB on the mixer? Yeah, I mean, it's really set up for that. It's being able to assign all your drums to A by using these individual assigns per channel, and all your melodics to B. So you could have like 6 tracks of drums and 2 melodic channels. You could have 2 tracks of drums and 6 melodic channels. It doesn't matter. You assign them to A and B. Your A and B outputs go in stereo into the A and B inputs in the Octatrack. Then you can go out the Q out and the headphone out, which are assignable on the Octatrack. Those come back stereo into the returns. And then you've got your main output, and you can use those stereo returns. You've got control over the level here, and you can still use your master filter and all that kind of stuff. So yeah, this is kind of designed to interact directly 100% with the Octatrack and with EasyBot's performance template. It works perfectly. So that way you can do things like sampling and looping. That's one thing we didn't talk about with this as well, that we had mentioned when I was talking with Adam about this, is that another really cool use of these A and B output buses is you could have a looper set up on one of the buses, and then you could say, you know what, I just want to loop track 3, and you send it out to B, record on your looper, and then put B back to your main. And then you've got that looper coming back into its own track, and you can fade it in when you want to fade it in. So being able to do those kind of output assignments to an external source, like the looper or like something else, is another really cool, flexible way to use the SL. Let's see, using SL with Eurorack, I would need a clever way to quickly connect them, something like a DB25 or a cable whip. Yeah, I mean, basically you would probably want a snake of some sort that you have connected to all of your outputs. If it was a huge output, I mean, I connected it pretty quick when I played, but I get what you're talking about. Yeah, being able to have some sort of a converter, that's one thing. Yeah. You still do need to cable stuff if it's coming from your modular. But like I said, on my last show, I had 2 voices, percussion, kick, hats, and 2 stereo effects ends. So I had 7 things going in and out of a modular case, plus multiple cables from the black box, and it took me like 4 minutes. That's another thing that if you look at the photos of the back of this, I can't really show you now because everything's all connected, but the sends and the returns on the back. So anything that's an output is a gray jack, and anything that's an input is a black jack. And so you have, for example, your effects send stereo right next to each other. So you have 2 black followed by 2 gray, then effects 2 is 2 black followed by 2 gray. And so there, when you're setting it up in the dark, it's really easy to be able to connect those things. So another just like little quality of life thing. Yeah, I might be 7'1", but I'm not. Let's see. Would love for Boredbrain to release a complementary module device that could be used as an audio interface, USB or ADAT for direct recording, or the individual stereo outs. So they are. We had it to show at the Booglen Friends event. It is called the Optics SL, and it's just like their Optics module, which is for modular, and it is an 8-in, 8-out ADAT converter. So what you can do is you can take your analog outs from this, plug directly into the 1/4-inch inputs and outputs on the Optics SL, connect that via ADAT to whatever you want to connect to. So push 3 or your audio interface, and then you can send and return through that ADAT interface with the mixer. So that is a thing and will be coming soon. Got to get the mixer out first before we get the mixer accessories out there. What else? A Namibia trip or Xcelon SL? I don't know. Namibia is pretty cool, but the SL you'd get to use for years. So up to you. Only problem is that it adds so much size and complexity. Price too for 5% of users obviously considered. Yeah, I mean, and that's why that was one of the main conversations with the design of this thing, was making the thing that most people will use and will have it be useful, because you can include a lot of little niche things, but you're making everybody pay for the fact that it has it in there. And so this was designed to be for most of the people that will be out there. And then there are ways to connect this to everything else. So like if you wanted to have this interface with Ableton and a laptop, you just set this mixer on top of an audio interface while you're performing, and you plug directly into the audio interface and you go straight into your laptop and you can interface this with Ableton, no problem. Rather than saying, okay, let's take all the analog goodness of this, put in digital to audio converters for everything going in and out so that you can interface with digital stuff. When all of those things already exist, right? There's already a way to connect analog to digital and digital to analog. The idea of this was to be the analog piece. And if you want to connect it with other stuff, absolutely that stuff exists out there for sure. For sure. What else? Labeling the cables would help too, for sure, 100%. Or if you're like, this was so hard for me to put colored cables in here. I never use these cables because I'm all about the black cables. And so for me, I used all black cables for my show in LA. And of course, I'm just making my life more difficult. I could just use colored ones and it would be way easier to see what's what, but that's just me being stubborn, whatever. Thoughts on Archer's rig versus clutch. So in my little tiny skiff, which was only 84 HP that I used for my LA show, I think enough of both the Archer's rig and the clutch that they were both in that little thing where I had very limited space. Archer's rig is still my #1 favorite hi-hat module, and clutch is my #1 favorite percussion module. I'm not using it for hi-hats at all, and I haven't since I got it. If you go back and watch the clutch video I did when I first got it, I loaded in my own percussion samples right away, and I started using them with the feel functionality of the clutch, where you could add accents. So it's like having a groove pool built in. And so to be able to have like 16th note percussive things and then adjust that kind of groove to them is amazing. The clutch is the best percussion module out there by far, and it's in only 8 HP. And the Archer's rig for me is the best hi-hat module out there. Like you can make it sound like any 808s, 909s, noise-based hats, FM, all of that stuff, and it sounds really good, and it has great controls on it for controlling it during the show. So those are two modules that I don't feel like they compete. They're amazingly complementary. Like one is amazing for hats and the other one is amazing for percussion. So yeah, 100%. They're both outstanding modules. Outstanding. Let's see. This plus the Push 3 standalone is all I need for my live sets. Yeah, totally. I mean, you could do even without a Push 3 standalone, you could do an entire live set with the Xcelon SL and a 1010 black box. Totally. because the black box has 6 mono or 3 stereo outputs. So you could have those coming into different channels. You could then treat those signals differently. You could sequence it all internally within the black box, or if you had an external sequencer, or if you wanted to do it with loops, and then you could control everything individually by channel in an analog mix environment. So you don't even need to go as big as a push 3 to be able to do exactly what you're talking about. Another device, and I got asked about this, somebody sent me a message before this to ask me to talk about this as well. Another device that is kind of made perfectly to work with this is the Electron Toneberg, because it has 6 mono or 3 stereo outputs, and they can be different combinations. And so one Toneberg with this, you can have basically 6 channels of Toneberg. And so then you have all of the effects, all of the sampling capabilities, the multi-sampled instruments, everything that you could do in the Toneberg, and then you can send those into independent channels in this, either stereo or mono, depending on what your outputs were. And so to be able to have something like that with something like this is great. This is really, it's funny because since I've been working on the SL with these guys, I start to look at gear differently. And one thing that I really appreciate more than I ever did in the past is gear that has multiple outputs that are assignable. So for example, if you wanted to do like the Electron setup, if you had an analog rhythm with its multiple outputs and a Toneberg with its multiple outputs, and then the Octatrack to use for performance effects, everything mixed centrally through the SL would be an unbelievably powerful setup and a really comfortable one to work with, because analog rhythm and Toneberg don't have a really good mixing solution. The rhythm in particular, where the Toneberg at least has like the little mixer channel, like the D-Tact and D-Tone have, like the mixer screen. The rhythm doesn't even have that. So you're like individual channel mixing, which is just a huge pain, but it has individual outputs. So taking individual outputs from a rhythm into this and being able to use all the analog drum goodness of the analog rhythm with all of the analog goodness of the SL is a pretty amazing combo. So, and then, the effects part of it, you could use the Octatrack, or if you wanted to spend half the money and still have amazing, you could get an H90 and have the 2 effect sends be going out to 2 separate channels on the H90. It's like there's so many flexible combinations of how you could use this would be like amazing. That's why I keep like changing up the setup and going like, whoa, I could do this, I could connect this, and yeah, it's crazy flexible. So where are we at? I have you put these drums in a new MPCs. Your MPCs will also hit harder. Sure. So if you take the drums, like for example, the drums like the boom, you could totally sample the boom into the MPC. One of the challenges though is when you have a sample of a kick drum, it is only that kick drum. And when you have it in its own module or drum machine or whatever that's synth, you can shape and change and convert that. So when you're using a kick drum sample, you would have to sample in dozens of different settings of the boom to different channels in an MPC. And then every time you wanted a new kick, you would have to change out the sample. And then you would have that sample that would be just for that mix. Where when you have it in synth format, you can modify it, you can tweak it to a sound system. Like I played somewhere recently that the low end was really overdriven. So if I put out the full low end of the boom, it just made everything sound mushy in the room. It was just like low end rattle. And so I was able to take down the low end on the boom because they were already driving the low end in the sound system. And I couldn't do that if I had it as a sample, unless I had a sample with an EQ, with sound shaping, with an envelope, with different stuff. So it definitely is nice to have the synth and the adjustability of synths for drums, for sure. Hey, Walnut Poe is new here. Welcome. Glad to have you. Flexible routing options, 100%. Electron ecosystem rhythm with Xcelon, totally. That's, I mean, it's amazing how good those devices and this device will work. Like we had at the Buchla and Friends event in LA, we had all the guys from Electron were at our booth playing around with the mixer, and they're like, oh yeah, we can connect this and this and this and this and this. And yeah, it was really cool. I mean, people have been saying for years that Electron should make a mixer, and you know, my guess is that at some point they probably will someday. But because it's Electron, it'll be all digital. It'll have effects. It'll be something different than what this is. Like this is really designed to be an analog, 100% analog mixer. You don't have to worry about software crashes or firmware updates or functionality changes or bugs or any of that stuff. This is analog. You switch it on and it works. You switch it off, it's done. So anyway, what else? Great idea with the tone work. I created some ambient patches that allows me to control all the tracks with a single MIDI channel, but the mixer was problematic. This is good. Yeah, and that's the thing. The tone work has an incredible amount of power with being able to route to those different buses. But then when you add on the ability to assign those buses to their own output and route each one of those outputs to a different channel in an analog mixer, all of a sudden you just exponentially magnified the value of the tone work, right? Because you can do all those kind of internal things that it's really good at, you know, multi-sampling and, you know, layering effects and doing all that stuff. And then you can send it into here to perform with, because it's really not performative. Like you have to switch and go to the mixer channel, and then you can adjust volume, but only 2 at a time because it's rotary. You can't do multiple things. And then you have to switch back to another channel to add the drive, and then switch back to another channel to change up the filter. And so with this, you can do all of that stuff by routing them to their own individual channels in a mixer. So totally different world. Any plans for a 12 or 16 channel version? Well, considering the 8 channel version isn't even out yet, and the 8 channel is actually a 16 channel version if you're talking about mono channels, so that's already there. But I would say one thing, like if one day that ever happened, it would be something different from this, because the objective of this is to be a portable performance mixer. This is something that you take with you to a gig. If you're going to make something the size of a Big 6, well, then you lose that portability thing. If this is going to be the size of a Pioneer V10 and weigh like 40 pounds, it's no longer portable. So you know, if ever there was going to be a bigger version of this, it would no longer be the portable mixer that this is, the performance mixer that this is. This is designed to be taken with you. And being this size, I mean, I'm sure at some point there'll be deck savers for these. Pop a deck saver on this and throw it in your backpack. Take it to a show, take it out, connect all your gear. Like it's crazy how portable it is for everything that it does. So anything, I mean, I haven't seen anything comparatively from a feature set standpoint at all. Like there's no other mixers out there that have this same combination of features. And so there's certainly nothing out there that's this size. So that's where, you know, that was the objective. The objective was, number one, make it sound amazing. Number two, make it completely portable so that you can take to your shows. And then number three, with those things in mind, what functionality can it have? You know, while maintaining its sound quality and its portability. And that's how we ended up with this. This was kind of everything that could go in here. Although I say that, there will be a couple little modifications and changes, so stay tuned for those on the final version. But this was basically everything that could be put into this. So anyway, I'm gonna have to sell my house at East Colfax. For those of you who don't know Denver, East Colfax is where all of the ladies of the evening hang out. Just get the H90. Yes, exactly. You don't need an H9000. The H90 is as good. The bigger version would be buy 3 and daisy chain. I totally agree. You have a gain stage party. I mean, honestly, you could, I mean, you do have those separate bus inputs. So if you had 2 more of these mixers and each one came into the bus input of the master mixer, you know, they wouldn't share effect sends. Each one would have their own effect sends, but you could expand it to as many as you want to. Just like I was saying, I would take the outputs from the Xcelon in my modular case into either direct inputs or the aux in or individual channel ins. So then you have kind of submixes in the TR1000, submix in the modular, and then this is your central performance mix for all of that stuff that you want to do. So anyway, gain stage party, totally. Aux in and record out, totally. Yeah, and I mean, you could do that chaining them together, or if you wanted to bring multiple into one, you could do, you know, outputs, you know, AB outputs or main outputs from one into AB inputs from another and have 3 of them together, and there you go. You've got 24 channels, stereo, all you ever wanted. So, all right, what else? Any other questions? Is there anything I missed? Adam, I know, is still in there. Is there anything I missed, Adam, that we talked about? I don't think so, but I could be wrong. Let me know if there's something that I missed. This was, by the way, my first time testing out the mic input. So that's why I had to kind of test out the levels at the beginning to see how it works. But yeah. Yeah, we had to test out the level. I'm happy to see that it works because I'm moving in the next few days, which is why my studio is very echoey and there's nothing on the walls anymore. And so being able to have something like this that's portable to travel with as well, to be able to do live streams, because when I live stream, I connect gear, but I also connect a mic, and then the output needs to go into a camera to be able to be streamed out and all that stuff. And I was using my big mixer, which you can see right there over my shoulder, the Model 24 Tascam. That's normally what I use for my live streams, is I connect everything through there. But with this, I didn't need to do that because I can put everything through the Xcelon and just have this go out and yeah, into the camera, and we're good to stream. So yeah, is the filter only for the stereo out, or can it be routed per track? It can be routed per track. So again, I'll bring something in. Let's just assign, let's say, our kick and our, I don't know, our modular to A. And then if I turn the filter on to A and I engage it, here I filtered out the kick and the modular, and then they're back in. And if I take that back, let's say I want to take out everything but the kick, filter out everything but the kick. I can assign the kick to B and switch this over to B and filter out only the kick, and everything else stays normal. And then if I just switch filter all, it's back on the main bus, including my voice. So yeah, there's a lot of flexibility in the routing of the filter, and also to be able to do this really easily during a performance is pretty cool. And you can set things up like I just did there, where, like, let's say you have kick on A and everything else on B. You can just take the filter and say, I want to filter only A, so it's only the kick, only B, so it's everything else, and switch filter all. That filters everything again. So just a ton of flexibility here for sure. For sure. Wasn't here the whole stream, also new. Hey there, what's going on? What power does this work on? 12 volt? I mean, I don't know. Adam? I don't know what's the answer to what power does this work on? Like normal power? It has an outboard power brick, which you can change the input plug on So if you're in Europe, you can just change the input plug to that one. Or if you're in the US, you can change the input plug on that one. If I'm not wrong, it uses the same power supply that the Electron boxes do. Wasn't that what we were using at Buchla & Friends, Adam? I think we were using an Electron power supply. So yeah, just like that. 18 volt, 3 amp, there you go. I was incorrect. 18 volt, 3 amp. Xcelon. Look, Adam, there's a new name. The Xcelon and the Xcelon. That's funny. It is freaking awesome. I totally agree. I really like that you combine the best of a traditional mixer with the core features of a DJ performance mixer. That was kind of the idea, was that a DJ mixer is for mixing full tracks, right? So you've got multi-band EQ because you've got a full sound frequency track that you're trying to mix with another full sound frequency track. So you need multi-band EQ to be able to take certain frequencies out and in to be able to mix those tracks together. With this, each channel is an instrument. So that instrument is EQ'd in the synth or the drum machine or whatever, and it's got its own output quality. Then it comes here and you've got this tilt EQ to be able to move it to the top or the bottom of the frequency spectrum in the mix, or boost mids or scoop out mids. But it's really for placement in a mix rather than trying to do corrective EQ. If you're corrective EQing during your performance, then in my mind, I would have just prepared better. I would have prepared my sounds differently, so I didn't need to correct the EQ in the performance. I would do that in the sounds themselves. So, but then again, that's just me. What else? Hey, Craig, what's going on? I'm curious if the SL's feature set is going to impact some Eurorack expanders for the Xcelon. The filter section sounds like it could be cool. Adam has already gotten asked this question a lot, and here's the answer. But yes, he wants to put the filter into a clever module. But yes, this needs to get finished first. Then after this, there's the Optics SL, which is another key thing. And then Adam will have all this time on his hands when he's not making these mixers by hand to meet the demand of all the people that want them. He'll have all that time to be able to design new modules for Eurorack. So anyway, let's see what else. I was at a different Buchla & Friends booth. Yours was always busy and could not get to chat with you in person. That was a good thing, right? Yes, I'm glad I did this too. It's nice to answer all the questions at once here. Greetings from Uruguay. Greetings. Thanks for joining in. So yeah, being able to have this, all the questions answered in one place is handy for us too, because it's nice to have the discussion about what this does or doesn't do, but we wanted to have a conversation where we could say, you know, answer the questions, let you guys hear it, let you guys see what it looks like and see what it does. So anyway, we just hired a new tech. Yeah, Boredbrain is hiring qualified people to build these in Richmond, Virginia, if you're interested, because I think there's going to be a lot of work. Like, just so you guys know, these are built, you know, these are assembled by hand in Virginia. So there's, that's part of the question about when will it be out, because you don't want to do the thing where it's like, yeah, let's put it out, but there's only 3 of them built, so only 3 people can have them. So they want to be able to staff up and scale up to be able to produce them. And that's why the pre-sales will be important, so that we can see what the demand is going to be. So if you want one of these, definitely do the pre-sale thing, because that will definitely have an impact on what's available out there. So let's see, what else? Any other questions? Did we answer them all? What's the difference between the effects send return and the send return inputs on the back? So there's 4 stereo sends and returns. 2 are these sends, which are shared across all of this. So the effects 1 is 1 path. So it's a normal type of send effect, like what you would have inside an Electron machine. There's 1 delay and everything is being sent to the 1 delay. So that's what these effects are up here on this. Then you have assignable insert effects, which can be bus inserts. So every channel can be assigned to either A, B, or main. And those are the A outputs and returns, B outputs and returns. So you can, let's say you wanted to have one be set up as a drum processing bus. You could set all your drums to A, send them out through the A bus through your, whatever, your drive, your EQ, your compressor, your whatever you wanted to use to process those. Then they come back into the mixer to go out the main output. So the difference is you have two send effects and you have two insert effects that are assignable by channel. Now, the insert effects, you don't have control over how much is being sent. You have control about whether it's being routed to or not. The regular effect sends, you have control with the knob over how much is being sent. And then you also have control on both here and here over the returns. So these are the effects send, or the effects returns from the sends, and these are the mix bus returns. So you do control volume on that end, but you don't control how much is sent. You just assign whatever the output is going to be. Okay. Maybe a DJ filter and sidechain module for Eurorack. If you don't have the Bohm Performer, yeah. I mean, the filter, I know that Adam's already looking at doing the filter. That would be pretty cool, but it's going to take a lot of time and effort. The sidechain thing, now sidechain, just like with the Bohm, when it's not in the mixer itself, you have to send it a signal that's going to be sidechained. And so you would have to have, like, for example, if you were using the Xcelon, you would send out on either the A or the B bus to the sidechain if you wanted it sidechained. And then it would go through the sidechain and then it would return back into that. With the Xcelon, what you can actually do for the sidechain, which is what I've done in the past, is because you have CV control over the volume on every channel, you can do an inverted envelope like the Bohm, not the Bohm, the battering ram can send out on its own channel an inverted envelope, or you can just invert a regular envelope, or you can do an envelope generator from the audio signal. And then you can use that to trigger the CV on every channel in order to be able to duck. So there is a way to do it already in the modular, and this was the creative way to do it in a desktop mixer. Okay. Let's see, is there dates for pre-sale? In about a month. If it's being assembled in Virginia by hand, any chance of a kit version? I doubt that. It's a complicated assembly, so I doubt there would be a kit version. Awesome. Smash my drums with a parallel compressor and then have a gentle bus compressor on the master. Totally. Yep, you could totally do that. Some mixers can be easily modified from pre to post fader for the direct outs. Being this is a performance mixer, would be great to be able to multi-track a performance, including fader action. So yes and yes, but you would never be able to record the fader action because it's not digital. So that would need to be recorded via MIDI if you were going to record the fader action. But you would be able to record changes in output volume for sure by using the faders. Now, the decision had to be made pre or post fader, really with this, because there just wasn't room to be able to route it both ways. And the decision was decided to do pre-fader because ultimately when you're multi-tracking, the most common use for multi-tracked outputs is to then pull those multiple tracks into a DAW. And it's much easier to add in changes in volume, changes in effects, all of that stuff to a pre-fader than it is to try to, like, if you have something that's not, the volume fader isn't up for long enough, you have to chop the audio, you have to make it fit together to try to extend it out. So pre-fader is the much more functional use for multi-tracking output, and so that's why that decision was made. Like, yeah, it could have been pre-fader or post-fader, But being able to do both, because it's an analog mixer, being able to switch from one to the other is a whole nother analog signal path for every single channel in stereo to go to that. And there's just not room. Like when you see the main board to be able to do that, it's pretty nuts. So anyway, because then you would have to have a switch on each one, which there's not space for the switch. So then you have to make the unit bigger to be able to do that. So like all those kind of decisions go into the design, and everything's pretty packed in here already as it is. So, will I be able to test the SL in Superbooth, the greatest trade show festival on the planet? I hope so. Yes, would be the idea, but as of right now, all of the booths at Superbooth are already reserved without one of them being a Boredbrain, even though Boredbrain has been begging and pleading for months to try to have a booth. So hopefully, fingers crossed, something will happen and there will be a space for us at Superbooth. Otherwise, we will be there. I will be there hopefully performing, and I will be there with mine. So hopefully there'll be a way to use them there. But the best answer is, let's hope that there will be a booth available for Boredbrain at Superbooth. That's what we're all hoping. Tell the Superbooth people you absolutely want us to be there. That would be amazing. Let's see, also sidechain ducking would affect the post fader output, and that could be a nightmare. Exactly. So if you were trying to do a post fader and you had the sidechain ducking, you would end up with a post fader signal that was changing volume. And if you wanted to take that signal and make it line up with, say, a different kick drum or something else, you would have this ducked version and you would have to chop it up into a bunch of little pieces to make it into something else. So really, for multi-tracking, pre-fader is the most flexible way. Like, it's obviously not the only way, but it's definitely the most flexible way. And if you want your main, if you want your full mix, you've got to main record out. So you can still get your full performance recorded. And then if you do need to go back in and fix something in that recording, then you have each individual channel multi-tracked pre-fader to go in and make any of those corrections. So you would use your main out recording as the main body of your track, and then you could take those all the individual elements, and maybe if you wanted to lengthen a breakdown or shorten something, you could cut out that piece of the main and put in the individual multi-tracks. So that's another way to do that. Epic. Yeah, we're still going. I'm still talking until my voice is gone. Man, I want this thing bad now. Adam did fit a bunch into a small package. All the credit to the smart people in the room. I was just able to say, here's what I'd like to see, and here's how I would use it. And then the smart people took over and said, okay, well, here's how we can make that happen. So it was a pleasure. As a dummy who doesn't know how to do the stuff, but he knows what he wants to do, it's nice to have smart people around who actually know the how to do it, so it can be put into place. Let's see, do you think this could be utilized effectively in a live and studio setup? Yes, definitely. I mean, that's kind of the idea. The Xcelon SL is studio and live. And the idea being, if you have a small studio, so where the only place you would really sacrifice is you don't have multiband EQ. So if you were doing corrective EQing like you would in a studio sometimes, then then you might want a full-size mixer that has, multiband EQ. But to be able to have a small home studio, if you don't have a lot of space, and being able to connect all of your gear to one analog mixer and then multi-track this out to the recording device of your choice, whether it's through an audio interface to a computer or into a push or into a laptop or into, a 1010 Blue Box or whatever, being able to do that is totally doable with this, right? This is not going to take the place of a, massive studio Neve mixing desk. That's not what this is for. But if you're looking to get one mixer that you could use in a small home studio for most uses, and that also doubles as your performance mixer that's portable that you can take with you, totally you could do that with this. Much more easily than you could go the other direction, right? It's a nightmare to try to travel with the Big 6 or with a Model 24, right? Those are way too big to travel with, but they're really good for studio. So it's like the trade-offs here. This is definitely geared towards live performance, but it could for sure be used in a studio, especially with all the routing opportunities, right? To be able to send your buses, put your buses into a patch bay and connect that with all your hardware in your studio, and then just assign right on the face of the mixer which bus it goes out to, is crazy powerful. So, what is the channel comp circuit based off of? Adam, that's a question for you. What is the default attack release settings and the fast attack settings? Again, Adam, go for it. Any other modular in-outs apart from the channel output? Sorry, I've only just returned the stream. No, I mean, basically one of the decisions that was made was to not do like CV control over stuff and all of that stuff, because that's already in the main Xcelon, and people who are looking for CV control are probably doing some sort of modular or semi-modular anyway. So that's gonna be more for that path. This is really for people who wanna use this to connect to other hardware boxes. So yeah, the biggest things as far as modular connectivity is the stuff that you see on top and the different buses going out the back. Those are the biggies. So anyway, that makes sense. I've been trying to find something that would try to balance the Eurorack needs with a couple of synths and drum machine. I mean, that's really what this is. You know, I mean, my Eurorack only setup is going to still be Eurorack only with an Xcelon and an outboard Oxy sequencer. If I want to play just Eurorack, if I wanted to play a kind of a combination of Eurorack and hardware, which is what I'm most interested in now, I will use a smaller skiff because I won't need any mixing or processing or any of that stuff. I'll use a smaller skiff with this mixer and a couple of hardware boxes and a couple of pedals to be able to transport really easily and to be able to have all that flexibility. So, you know, and if you have all the space in the world and you don't have to worry about flying on a plane, like you can set up like this, like what I have right here. So you have full-size modular, right, 14U84 plus an outboard sequencer plus this mixer, black box, TR1000, you know, push 3, separate synths on the sides, like all the stuff, and then it all comes centrally through the Xcelon, the SL, and with different submixes and different devices. So it really gives you a ton of choices, right? You can set it up any way you feel like, which was kind of the idea in the beginning. Okay. Where are we at? It's a great and very well thought out mixer. Totally agree. Thank you to the smart people. The compressor was adjusted subjectively over the course of a couple days, but we will publish the exact attack release ratio numbers. Circuit came from my brain. Yes, it did come from Adam's brain. This is a totally original, I mean, but I will say, when I say totally original and totally from Adam's brain, Adam went to school for this stuff. So he's an audio engineer and has worked in studios and has done repair and has designed modules. So like, this isn't just some random dude that like had an idea, let's make a mixer. This is somebody who actually knows how to make a really, 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 really good mixer, who said, you know what, I'm finally gonna do it. So that's where we ended up with. But yeah, it came out of his mind, but after years and years and years and years and years of experience going into it and being influenced by a lot of different things. And one thing too that he and I were talking about, you know, there's a lot of subjective numbers out there about the quality, sound quality and output and whatever that they don't really mean anything because everybody measures them differently. The important thing to know about this is that the way it's designed, everything that was put into it is the same type of architecture that goes into all of these like professional studio mixers and all of that stuff. So this was like taking all of that information and saying, okay, how can we miniaturize the components, and what are the important bits to include and not include, and how can we make that into something that's portable and usable by people? So that was where this all came from Adam's brain. Yes. Let's see, the L6 has been a good, cheaper solution for me until I saw this. I mean, the L6 is a great mixer, and it is what it is. I mean, there's a lot of mixers out there. That's the cool thing about this, is that this is not necessarily competing with anyone. Like, it's competing with what people have cobbled together as the solution to do what this does. But there's not a real direct competitor to this, because there's nothing that has this full-featured a feature set that's geared towards this specific use case, right? You have DJ mixers that are way better at being DJ mixers than this would ever be. And you have studio mixers that would be way better at being a studio mixer than this would ever be. But none of them will ever be the quality of live performance mixer that this will be. So they're each their own thing. And the L6, very much like some of the other mixers that have rotary knobs, for me, they're not really performance. They're kind of what I would call functional mixers. So they functionally mix together signals at different levels, and maybe have outputs, or maybe have a filter or something like that. But they're not really designed to be performed with. They're designed to functionally mix signals together and be adjusted slightly. This is really designed to have your hands on it the whole time and to be performed with during a whole show. So yes, seems like the exact approach I'm aiming for, probably unconsciously adopted your setup and what I was trying to do. Cool. How do you think this stacks up against the Play Differently Model 1, 1.4? Again, those are great DJ mixers, and they're designed to be DJ mixers. The Model 1 is a bit more of a hybrid DJ and live performance mixer, but at its core, it's an Allen and Heath Zone. I mean, at its core, it's an analog DJ mixer, which is really what it's for. So when you start to look at what the functionality is, and you say, okay, this has an analog drive circuit per channel, this has a compressor per channel, it has built-in sidechain that's assignable, it has a built-in high pass, low pass DJ style filter. I think the Zone is, the Model 1, I think it's the same as the Zone, where you have to switch between high pass and low pass, if I'm not wrong. I could be wrong. I haven't used one in a while. This is 8 stereo channels versus 4 stereo channels. So they really don't compare. They're really different beasts that are made for different solutions, right? If I was going to DJ, I would pick a Model 1 over this 10 times out of 10. To play a live show, I would pick this over Model 1 10 times out of 10. So it just really depends on what you're using it for in the end. And that's the thing, is that because the only solutions available for live performers up until now have been either DJ mixers or studio mixers, the questions that we're getting a lot is, how does it compare to this DJ mixer, or how does it compare to this studio mixer? And my answer is that it doesn't really, like one-to-one. Output quality, sound quality, audio quality, on par with any of the ones we've been talking about. But functionally, a totally other thing. So it really comes down to the use case, really. More than anything else. If your primary use is live performance of hardware, like whether it's modular, hardware boxes, whatever, live performance of that, this is what you would go with. If your primary use is DJing, then you definitely should use a DJ mixer, 100%. So, L6 can handle Euro signal, which is great. This can also handle Euro signal, which is great. I could see sending the SL to the L6 for multi-track recording since I already have one. Yeah, you could do that. I mean, you could use the L6 basically like the way I'm using the blue box. I think the L6 only has, I mean, I guess it would be the same as the blue box. I think L6 has 6 stereo inputs, if I'm not wrong. Can those be split to 12 mono? Because if they can, then you could totally send from this to that and use that to record. Use the L6 as your recorder, for sure. But yeah, this, as far as the Eurorack level, this takes Eurorack input level as well, just like the L6 does, or line level, or anything in between. So, yeah. I use the Model 1 and 1.4 connected via D-sub for master slave. It's great if you use D-sub, but annoying for mono tracks is you need a splitter. It's a huge footprint. Yeah, I mean, and not only is it a huge footprint, it is completely impractical to travel with. That's another thing we come back to. Like, this was another part of the conversations that I had with Adam over the last couple of years about this was, as a traveling musician, probably 80% of the gigs that I play, I have to take a plane to. So my gear, because I don't like to check my gear, it all has to be able to come as hand luggage. It all has to be able to come carry on. So my modular is set up so that it can go in a trolley and everything else in my rig goes in my backpack. And then I take a check bag for, you know, clothes and whatever else. So with this, being able to scale down my modular, because I don't need a mixing section and I don't need all the processing that this has, being able to scale down the modular to a smaller skiff, plus this still puts it into hand luggage. And then any other external boxes that I have just go in my backpack. Or the scaled down modular and a few hardware boxes go in my rolling bag, and this goes into a backpack. So it's really designed to be a traveling rig. Taking a Model 1 and a Model 1.4 is not possible to do that with. So it's that's my take on that. They're great mixers though, and they sound great, but so does this. Let's see. Used to use 1.4 with D-sub for my WMD performance mixer. Yeah, that's pretty cool. That's a great use of that. Glad you were involved in this project. So was I. Definitely solves many of the issues we have to deal with for live performance. I did bring a mixer, effects, dedicated master filter, etc. Yeah, this and this was like the way that this kind of came about was really interesting. I met Adam a couple years ago at NomCon, and I was saying, I love your mixer. You know, it's really great, and he was familiar with my stuff, and he was saying, like, what would you like to see? And I said, well, I feel like that there's two big holes in the market. One is a clock device that will connect Pioneer DJ Link to modular or MIDI clock. And the other one is a mixer that is geared towards live performance that's not Eurorack, that's made for people who have combinations of different setups. And it was funny because he was like, well, that's interesting because I've been thinking about doing a mixer like that. We should talk. And so that kind of started our conversations on this. And one of the early conversations was, here's the mixer I'd like to make with all the ideas. And I was like, yes, like 100% yes, that's exactly what we need. And then the rest of the conversations became fine tuning that idea into a size, what capabilities it needed, what were the most useful versus the trade-off of how did we get into this, you know, like how much can we fit in, all that stuff. So it became more a fine tuning and a use case conversation. But the main idea was already in Adam's head a long time ago. So it was very nice to connect with somebody like that, because I always feel like when I get a new piece of gear, I too often feel like I'm like the victim of people's bad decisions. And that I'm like, I wish they would have talked to somebody who does what I do, because they never would have done this way. And so that's been the most exciting thing, and why I was super excited to do a video. Like, I'm not getting paid by Boredbrain to do this. I'm doing this because I am so excited about this thing, because it's what I've been begging for forever. And so to finally be able to say, yes, this thing exists, and I had some tiny, tiny little role in it, is super exciting for me. So yeah. Anyway, where we at? I use Neve 5059s and NW2s, D subs for studio now. Yeah, So there you go. That's a proper studio setup. Absolutely. Can you use mono effects through the send returns? Yes, you can. So right now I'm sending out mono to my two send effects, but I'm returning them stereo. So I have because the Endorphins Ghost, for example, has like ping pong delay and stuff. So I'm sending out mono and returning stereo to those ones. Let's see, this plus the live track L6 to record your performance from the outs would be a simple solution. Yes, I totally agree. So is the 1010 Blue Box. That's been my go-to. Similar, very similar. Let's see, we didn't use D-Sub since that's more for semi-permanent setups and can be a pain if you just want to plug anything in. Xcelon SL just goes anywhere and connects to anything. Totally made the right choice. I agree. If you use mono effect send, it will sum the right signal to the left and then return will copy to the right. Yes, exactly, which is why I'm sending mono and returning stereo. Because I wanted to be able to, I don't really care, at least in this setup, I don't really care about stereo input into my effects modules. I just cared about stereo output because they have things like panning and ping pong delay and stuff like that. So I wanted that in there. What trolley do I use? I use the Away soft side carry-on because the hard ones were just a little bit too small for the 14 U84. The 12 U84 fit perfectly in the hard side Away carry-on. But this one's slightly too big, so this one goes into the soft side Away carry-on. Yes, and it fits perfectly. So if I missed this, can each track be recorded separately into a DAW? If so, is it quarter inch outputs or USB? So there's no USB because that would require analog to digital converters. This is a 100% analog mixer, but there are pre-fader outputs, which is all of these little outputs right up here on the top. Those are pre-fader stereo outputs per channel, and those can be plugged into any audio interface to go into your DAW. So you would just need a multi-input audio interface. You cable straight into that, connect that via USB to your DAW, and you're golden. But this is not an audio interface. It's not a digital mixer at all. It's completely analog. But you can put that digital piece in between. Keep my eye on the Optics SL. Yeah, it was pretty sweet. Do we have MSRP yet? Not finalized, still to be determined, but we're shooting for the same range as like an Octatrack. So significantly less than any of the mixers we've been talking about so far. Significantly less. So anyway, did I hear correctly earlier that the filter is passive? I'm guessing the channel EQ is passive too. Filter also sounded real good. So Adam, I'm sure will chime in with the specifics of the filter and the EQ. They are both analog, and the filter is stereo, high pass, low pass, DJ style filter with separate resonance controls over the high pass and the low pass. So, but yes, I think that answers the question. All right, any other questions as Adam chimes in on the answer to the filter and EQ passive question? Yep, if you have other questions, please pop those into the chat. Otherwise, if you think about something afterwards, so filter is voltage controlled, so not passive. The EQ is very active. Well, there you go. MSRP is not decided yet, not finalized, and pre-order should be open in about a month. And they will be shipping this summer. So anyway, Cool. Well, thank you guys very much for tuning in and for all your great questions. If you've got another question that pops up, feel free to throw those in the comments of this video, and I'll try to respond to all those. Adam will respond to those as well, so that we can get some good information out there. And yeah, if you have other questions, you can reach out to me or to Boredbrain or whatever. We'll be happy to answer those. And yeah, I look forward to getting this in everybody's hands so that you guys can have as much fun with it as I've been having, because I love it, and that's why I wanted to talk about it today. So hopefully you guys will dig it too. So thank you guys. I appreciate it. Appreciate your time tuning in, and compare this to the Roland MX1. No comparison. The MX1's cool, but it's all digital. It's really only works well with the Roland gear. This works with anything. This is fully analog, so not a lot of comparison. So anyway, thank you guys very much, and I look forward to seeing you all in the next stream, which will be from a totally new location because I will have moved out of my house at that time. So look forward to seeing you guys at a show sometime soon, and at Super Booth this year, and on the next stream, which will be coming up in a week or so. So thank you guys very much, and I'll talk to you soon. Cheers.